Welcome back to the Citizen channel. I hope you're all staying safe and well. And it's your first time, where have you been? This is our little History Boys feature where we look at a game back in time. And today we're going to take you back. So if you were there, let's hope you get some great memories of this game. If you weren't there, but you were around, things that you might remember. And if you're too young to remember, which probably most of you are watching this, all buggers like me, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Have a look back at Manchester City's wonderful history, of course. And we're going back to 1985, the 2nd of February, and a game at Selhurst Park. So it's Crystal Palace against Manchester City in the CANON League Division 2. Very well, very appropriate. CANON, if you don't know, we're like photocopiers, electronics, that sort of stuff at the time. Please, if you are new to the channel, please push that subscribe button. We'd be very, very grateful if you can do that. Tell your friends, of course. Push that notification button so these vlogs are coming out. All things City past, present and forever, of course, or as forever as I'm here, which could be in perpetuity, couldn't it? Because all this YouTube stuff will be there when I'm long gone. So if someone's got access to it, it'll be there. So that's all we can say, isn't it? We go on forever. We go on forever. Not just in the hearts, hopefully, of our families, but obviously in other ways as well. Please, if you do like this, give us a thumbs up, please. I try and get between 15 and 20 for these history vlogs if I can. They're not as, they're not as vastly watched as some of the present stuff is, but obviously it's quite niche. Of course it is, but it's always great to learn about City's history, isn't it? And I hope you do enjoy it. So give us that thumbs up, like I think is Pep doing it in the corner. I'm not too sure. That'll be absolutely wonderful. Leave all your comments, any comments. As I said, it doesn't matter if you're there or not. It doesn't matter. Just leave your comments. Right, Steve Coppell. Steve Coppell, yes, there's a name. We'll talk about him later as far as we're concerned. Well, very briefly, only one line. Steve Coppell was in charge of Palace at the time, and Billy McNEILL was well into his second season as manager of us, of course. Palace were fighting against relegation. They were actually fourth from bottom. We were up the other end. We were up the other end of the table. We were battling. This is the CANON League second division. Don't forget, sort of second tier of English football. We were trying to get promotion under Billy McNEILL in his second season, and we did sit at that point in time when we went to Palace in the third promotion spot, ahead of Birmingham City on goal difference. But Birmingham had the advantage. Birmingham had 2 games in hand on us. Portsmouth were 5th, 4 points behind, but could close that to 1 point if they win the game in hand, which they had over us as well. So it was a big game for us. It was still certainly a big game for Crystal Palace. Just very briefly, we have a little chat about 1985, hopefully stoke some memories for you, and we have a look away from football. Personally, I'd left my job out. I'd worked at GEC Trafford Park till the early 80s. I'd set up in a partnership with an ex-boss at GEC who turned into a friend, of course, over time. Set up a partnership producing, publishing and distributing magazines for computer gamers. Yes, so it was doing pretty well. I'd started it as a fanzine in the late 70s. And we progressed to do it as a little zine that we were selling to specialist computer shops, stuff like that. So that's what I was doing. We're sort of ready to sort of take off a little bit with it. I say it obviously did end eventually, but at that stage it was going pretty well. But it was hard work. But I was getting to certainly lots of games still. I was still managing to get to games, so that wasn't too bad. I didn't get to this game, I'll be honest with you. In fact, I didn't go to Palace until 2022. Maggie Thatcher, there we go, became the first post-war Prime Minister to be publicly refused an honorary degree by Oxford University. You may look at that as a good thing, you may look at that as a bad thing, depends on your stance. We don't do politics on here. We were watching on television our first live debates from the House of Lords. I mean, that'd be good for insomnia, I suppose, if we watched one of them. BT, the Swines, BT had announced that they would be phasing out the wonderful, even though the colour was a bit dodgy, the wonderful red telephone boxes. Yeah, it was a crap colour anyway, wasn't it? So I wasn't too worried about that. But I think we can still find one or two as I'm recording this in 2022. So it's still not been totally ousted or oosted or whatever you call it, have they, the red telephone box. And on the 4th of February, just a couple of days later, a very famous, I think they've made a film, haven't they, as well? I think there's been a film, certainly one film. There might have even been 2, I can't remember now. That's bad for me, isn't it, guys? On the 4th of Feb, the TV show Miami Vice would launch and make its debut on BBC One. If you like your music, do you remember a group called Foreigner? Well, they were #1 in the singles charts with I Want to Know What Love Is. That one. Yeah, sorry about that. I thought when I wrote it out, I thought I won't sing it, and then I just can't help myself because I sung it to myself when I read it out. So sorry guys, that's just not what I'm like. So that was number one in the singles charts, and they were actually number one in the album charts as well. Foreigner with an album called Agent Provocateur. I don't know if any Foreigner fans out there would have had that album, or perhaps you still got it. Perhaps you still got it somewhere. It'd be great if you have. Give us a shout. Give us a shout. Let me know. So Foreigner were doing very, very well, of course. And if you stuck a quid on the shelf and forgot about it to collect dust, or, well, yeah, it would be paper pounds then. Yeah, of course it was it. Oh, I'm not sure. I'm losing track, guys. I'm too old. I left that paper quid. I'm sure it wasn't a coin in 1985, but I could be wrong. I have no idea. Coins of, you lose track, don't you? It's a long time ago. Anyway, that pound, whether it was a paper pound or a metal pound that you left on the shelf, would be worth the grand total of £2.68 in 2022 as I'm recording this. So probably best just spending it, wasn't it, in respect. Right, back to football. Yeah, so we're hoping upon hope to do a double. I say it's very important for us going up the other end. As I said, it was just as important for Palace for their end of the table as well. But we beat them at Main Road the previous September, one of the earlier games in the season, with goals from Steve Kinsey and Gordon Smith. Yeah, so we beat them 2-1. So we're hoping to complete the double over Palace. And leading up to this, we'd won 3 and drawn one of our previous 4 league games. We beat Wolves and Wimbledon at home and Huddersfield away. But we'd also drawn at Leeds, who were about mid-table at the time. So it was an okay draw, but obviously it would have been nice to beat them. But we had suffered defeat in the FA Cup. So we certainly didn't last long in that. In the third round of the FA Cup at Coventry City. So did you go to that one? Palace were also out of the FA Cup after a replay against Millwall, so we've had a couple of games. But they've been doing okay in the league recently. Even though they were fourth bottom, they've only been beaten just the once in their last 10 games. But those 10 games, 6 had been drawn. So with that 1 point for a draw, of course, it was hard to get away from the bottom. And of course, this great run of 10 games had literally propelled them from third bottom to fourth bottom. So not a lot of difference, but so they were still deep in trouble, really, and needed to get something against City. We had just returned from Malaya. Yeah, we'd had what we call a playing holiday. I think I'll just have a look at the temperatures, actually, before I come on in. It was like 70s, 80s, 90s at that time of the year. So I don't know whether the guys enjoyed it. I've not seen any articles by the players on whether they enjoyed it out there, but they'd just been on a playing holiday to Malaya. So hopefully a little bit of warm weather would have boosted the energy levels for this run-in to try and get us promotion back to the top tier. A crowd of 7,668. That's 7,668. Was not exactly packed. It wasn't exactly packed to the rafters, Sellers Park, but that was about 1,000 up on average. The average for the season, so it wasn't a total disaster of a crowd. But when you think, obviously, I don't know what the average is now. As I'm recording this, probably in the mid 20,000s. It was a lot of fans to be rattling around Sellers Park. Our lineup that day, the City lineup that day, guys of my age will remember the 80s teams, of course. This was a typical mid-80s starting 11 of Alex Williams in goal, Andy May, Paul Power, Ken McNeill. Yes, he was actually just on loan at the time. He's not, when I see that name, I start looking for record books and finding out how many times he played, because he's not one of the regular names, of course. Mick McCarthy, David Phillips, Gordon Smith, who we mentioned earlier, scored that goal in the first game. Graham Baker, Jim Melrose, Clive Wilson, Steve Kinsey. So, yeah, just a typical mid-80s sort of team, that, wasn't it? So the names you would remember. On to the game. And yes, we did repeat the 2-1 winning scoreline of earlier in the season. So we actually completed the double over Crystal Palace, which was obviously very useful for us and not so useful for them. It did actually start badly for City. Palace took the lead early on through an opportunistic overhead kick, I think they call it, from a corner from Andy Gray. Yes, not the Andy Gray from the telly and Aston Villa in the old days. No, this other Andy Gray that I'm sure you can see an image of now, who was obviously a good player for Crystal Palace in the day. But within 11 minutes, we were back square as Mr. Phillips. Yeah, Phillips blasted home an equaliser, so it wasn't too bad. But both teams are finding it quite hard going on a very heavy pitch at Selhurst Park. But City appeared to adapt better early on, and obviously adapt better to conditions throughout the game. Mick McCarthy and on loan Ken McNaught, who we mentioned before, in particular, were the standouts for City on the day. Our second and eventual winning goal came in the 58th minute. Clive Wilson robbed Gary Locke of Palace and galloped free to put the ball past the oncoming Palace keeper to make it 2-1. And we held on to that lead for the rest of the game. So the win kept City firmly in third, although a Birmingham win at the same day or the same weekend also kept the pressure on us up in that position. But yeah, City's rest of the season wasn't great. It wasn't exactly electrifying. We lost a few games, and we won a few, but we lost a few. So it wasn't spectacular by any means. But Birmingham, yes, would win their games in hand. They had a couple of games in hand on us, didn't they? And they, along with the leaders and eventual champions that year, which were Oxford United, were the standouts in the running. Yeah, they performed particularly well, Birmingham and Oxford, in the run up to the end of the league. But fortunately for City, yes, Blackburn, who were top when we played Palace, sort of imploded a little bit, and they would only finish fifth. So that helped us, of course, keeping up there. And with Portsmouth never quite able to get to us, they were below us, weren't they? 3 points behind with a game in hand, but still behind us. So Portsmouth never quite got there. It come into the last day, of course, a very famous last day that most of you would remember, the memorable, if you were there, or even if you weren't, you probably heard about it, the memorable final game of the season against Charlton, where nothing less than a victory really for City would do, which we did. And of course at Portsmouth, we beat Portsmouth to that third promotion spot just on goal difference, so very important. As for Palace, well, they'd eventually improved their league position and finished comfortably in 15th spot, although they'd only took 22 points from the final 18 games. A bit like us and the clubs around us, the teams around them at the bottom didn't perform particularly well for the rest of the season. Coppell, of course, Steve Coppell, I knew we'd come back to this guy. He'd had 4 different spells in charge of Palace, and despite a good reputation as a manager, which he had, all he had from Palace to sort of back that up was a couple of promotions that he'd won through the playoffs. So he hadn't won a title; he'd won a couple of promotions through the playoffs, and of course he was FA Cup runners-up as well. And that was it. That was his management honours, if you like. All right, he got a few as a player, of course he did. But that was his time at Crystal Palace, and of course we won't talk about it, but we will. We'll mention it. It's a line in our history, isn't it? And that's all it is in City's history. Of course, he had 4 and a bit weeks at City as well. So the less said about that, the better, probably. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Please, as I said, please leave your comments if you remember it. Or if you don't remember it and just want to comment on something, please do so. I have checked all the facts as well as I can on this. Sometimes my head doesn't quite connect with my tongue and I might say things wrong, but please forgive me if I have. I try and put these together and hopefully inform and entertain you. So I hope you did enjoy this History Boys feature. Please give us that thumbs up. That'd be wonderful. It'd be great to hear from you as well. Not just about this, about anything. But thanks for joining me today for this little History Boys feature. Crystal Palace 1, Manchester City 2, going back to the CANON League Division 2, February the 2nd, 1985. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest day. Have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More importantly, let's all look after each other. From me here again on the Citizen channel. I only ask one thing, don't I? Please stay safe, Blues. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.